Now, I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakshott. Isabel, last night we spoke about a guy called Qari Rauf. He was a sort of religious studies teacher, cab driver, father of 5, and grooming gang leader. He was part of a gang of 9 that raped, tortured and sexually abused 47 girls, some as young as 13. Rauf himself trafficked a 15-year-old girl, drove her to another flat where he took part in a gang rape. So we dealt with him last night. Now, this monstrous group was sentenced to a total of between 4 and 19 years in jail. So this was back, I believe, in about 2012, something like that. Within 5 years, only 2 of them were still in prison. And we're going to talk now about Rauf's sidekick, one of his sidekicks, a guy called Adil Khan. Now, both Rauf and Adil Khan were stripped of their British citizenship, but immediately renounced their Pakistani citizenship, and so were allowed to stay in Britain because they couldn't be left stateless, apparently. Now, Khan's case. Now, these guys, right, listen to this, they've been through before 12 judges, 3 Crown courts, immigration tribunals and the Court of Appeal. Their long-running courtroom dramas alone have cost British taxpayers in legal aid £550,000. Altogether, for the Rochdale grooming gang of 9, we, you, me, every British taxpayer, we shelled out for these guys £2 million to defend themselves and to mount these challenges. Now, both Rauf and Khan were recommended for deportation, had their citizenship taken away, but were allowed to stay because they're now stateless. Now, Khan's success in this endeavour unfolded after he told a tribunal, you're going to like this, the judge swallowed this whole. A, he was innocent. Well, no, he'd just been in prison. He was found guilty by a British court. B, had not, this is my favourite, and I'm quoting, had not committed, and I quote, that bigger crime. And C, he wanted to be a role model for his son and teach him right from wrong. On that basis, this monster was allowed to stay in this country. British justice, what a disgrace.
I mean, it just leaves you speechless, doesn't it? Particularly the role model thing. I mean, what an absolute appalling joke. It really is awful. You know what I would do with these people? I don't quite understand the thing about giving up their Pakistan citizenship. Is that something that they did voluntarily in order to try
yeah, they did. It was a ruse.
Well, in that case,
it was a ruse.
In that case, this is really quite simple, isn't it? I would say to them, either you take back your Pakistani citizenship or we put you on a plane to one of our uninhabited bits of overseas territories, and that's where you'll be left, and you can make the best of it, because there is no way that this country is going to continue to support you or use taxpayers' money to allow you to try to game the system. So here we are, we're going to put you on a plane and off we go to somewhere off Pitcairn Island, and that's where you will be abandoned to your fate. That's what other countries would do.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, you know, I'm not going to mince my words here. These disgusting bastards are walking the streets of Rochdale, where they terrorise so many local girls. And these local girls, these underage, vulnerable girls, often bump into them. One girl bumped into Khan in Asda in 2020. She said, "I've never been so scared in all my life. I felt like my heart stopped beating." Another girl bumped into one of her abusers and was so terrified she wet herself. This is what's going on. Now, only 5 months ago, one of the victims, mercifully, one of the rapists was getting convicted, and one of the victims was, of course, allowed her impact victim statement at the end of the trial. This is in Rotherham, where 1,400 girls were abused. So she submitted her rape impact or a victim impact statement to the court. Guess what? Sheffield Crown Court, the judge ordered her to remove from her statement her demand for her abusers to be deported. That was 5 months ago. It's just unbelievable, isn't it?
Why? On what grounds? How is that not a reasonable expectation? She shouldn't have to demand it. It should be absolutely automatic. We need to get tough on deporting people who come to our country and then break the law. We need to get really tough, like other sensible countries do. And if the law doesn't allow us to do that, then let's change the law. And if international laws don't allow us to do that, then let's derogate from those international laws, because you don't get away with this sort of stuff in other countries. So how is it that Britain has become some kind of sponge for these characters? And not only are they able to get away with the most deplorably short prison sentences for heinous crimes, and the victims of those crimes will never ever get over it. It is life ruining, this sort of thing. Not only do they get away with a couple of years in jail, or even less in some cases, when they get out, they continue to be supported by the British taxpayer. Are you kidding me?
I know. Well, yeah, as I say, we, Rochdale alone, this awful gang of 9, the British taxpayer forked out more than £2 million for their cases to challenge being deported, to plead not guilty and to fight these charges. Fortunately, they were all found guilty, but as you say, Isabel, they got pretty lamentably short sentences. You know, Rauf, as we discussed last night, he got 6 years, he was out in 2.5. But the idea that these people who aren't even British citizens are walking among their victims, free men, it's an absolute disgrace. And I should say, by the way, I'm indebted to Douglas Murray. This is the main article in the new edition of The Spectator, in which he details this horror. I recommend everybody reads it. It's as I said last night, it is such an indictment of modern Britain. So this judge in Sheffield, indicative of all these people in authority who are still appeasing these awful rapists, these paedophile rapists. Frankly, we know why, because they don't want to be thought of as Islamophobic. They don't want to be seen being nasty to Muslim men. You know, it's of Pakistani origin. It's still going on. The syndrome that allowed this to happen for more than 2 decades, which, by the way, continues, is still going on. That the authorities, the hand-wringing middle-class white authorities, are still worried about being called racist. It's just, you know, it's infuriating.
People are so angry about this, aren't they? And I think the government is in a real bind over it. We saw earlier today the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham, has broken ranks. He's a Labour figure, used to be a Labour cabinet minister in the Blair Brown years, and has now broken ranks, arguing for a limited, what he called a limited national inquiry, limited public inquiry, which is the kind of thing that you and I were talking about last night. Something that just doesn't go on ad nauseum. And I think that's going to make life very, very difficult for Keir Starmer. I said yesterday on this show that the kind of mood in Parliament, there was a sense that the government might have to do a bit of a climb down on this. I think Andy Burnham has just made it pretty tricky for them.
Yeah, and we were talking about Jess Phillips last night, the Home Office Minister, and I watched all the footage last night, which I hadn't seen during that debate and everything. She looked very awkward. I think she wants an inquiry, but she's towing the party line. And Keir Starmer still doesn't want one because he was Director of Public Prosecutions when all this was going on and did nothing. I was the one who recommended prosecutions. Yeah, he recommended prosecutions in 2013, just as he was leaving that job. He'd been doing it since 2008. He presided over an administration that allowed this to happen. So it's uncomfortable for him, it's uncomfortable for Labour, and I think we should be indebted to Elon Musk for reigniting a scandal that should never have been buried. I hope, as we also discussed, Isabel, I feel I'm kind of diffident about the idea of a public inquiry. Public inquiries never achieve anything. They take far too long. We could maybe put a time limit on it, say only a year or something like that. But better still, right now, it would be good to aggressively go after all the coppers, all the teachers, all the social workers, all the local politicians who turned a blind eye and let all this grooming gang rape go on.
Absolutely. People want retribution, and that is completely natural and reasonable. And I think there should be, post-event consequences for those people that, as you say, are roaming around. Maybe we can have some measures that ban them from particular areas if we literally can't get them out of our country. Yeah. One way or another, they should not be allowed to intimidate or frighten their victims. And yeah, I think it's an unholy mess. And Elon Musk is continuing to get stuck into this. He's been tweeting about it all day. Yeah,
you'll like this, by the way. This is breaking news. The Labour government's counter-extremism unit has been assessing the risk posed to Britain by Elon Musk's tweets. What do you reckon of that?
This is so fun. I mean, it's almost funny, isn't it?
He's laughing.
I love that.
The risk posed to Britain by tweets. Unbelievable, unbelievable. That.